this is Peak Entertainment, and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you, and this will be my review of the Season 2 premiere of Daredevil Born Again. Now there could potentially be spoilers here for not only this episode, but for all other TV series and movies set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so just beware when going into this overall video. So to quickly recap then on the finale of Season 1, which saw Wilson Fisk very much reassert his power grip and influence on the city as mayor, we saw Daredevil and Punisher team up to repel various corrupt cops who were wearing the Punisher logo and brand. Frank is later captured by these cops alongside the Swordmaster and other influential members within the council and politics, of whom Fisk can later on use to control the city even further. We ended up seeing Matt and Karen assemble a team of squad of cops together to take down Fisk no matter how long it takes. Now the events within Season 2 take place around 6 months later, seeing Fisk seemingly gain approval and favour within the general public. We have the news reports interviewing everybody out in the open, very much satisfied with the work that he is doing. We then opened up with the big sequence of seeing Matt as Daredevil, all decked out in his new black suit, infiltrating a cargo ship which contained a secret stash of illegal weapons, ordered by Fisk to be taken into the country. Matt takes down several members before leaving the ship marooned at the harbour. Now as the news of this event breaks out, Fisk has to bring in CIA operative Mr. Charles, who works for Valentine Fontaine, who we saw at the end of the Thunderbolts movie aligning herself with the team going forward. The job here is to basically get rid of all of the mess left within the ship and remove the remains of the ship as quickly and quietly as possible, as it has all of the illegal weapons, and of course it's a massive blockade to further trade into the city. Matt continually works with Karen to expose Fisk's operations. We see later on the psychiatrist Heather Green suffering from PTSD from her encounter with Muse earlier on throughout the first season. And we ended the episode with Matt's police contact Cherry coming under attack from certain unit force charged by Fisk. Matt, as Daredevil, saves him after an intense encounter, but he gets distracted when he hears Cherry having a heart attack. Matt gets beaten down and is unmasked by the agents before they're stabbed down by various knives, and it's been hinted later on that this was the work of Poindexter, of whom we assumed the identity of Bullseye from the Season 3 of the Netflix series and also the previous season of Born Again. So overall then, in terms of an episode, I thought this was okay. As usual, I think the production, the actors are all fine and competent enough as usual. And as an entry into a season, I think there were enough elements here to at least gain some form of interest as to what will happen throughout the rest of the season. Now, as always for me and for a lot of people, Vincent D'Onofrio's performance as Wilson Fisk remains the central compelling character of this series and perhaps this entire iteration of the Daredevil character. Now Matt Murdock not as much now, because I think certainly since the third season and the Born Again Season 1, they've made him far too brooding, far too much deconstructionalist, very much hiding with his glasses and his hoodies. He's just not as appealing as a character as to what he was certainly in the first season of the Netflix series, where he was the charismatic lawyer who carried around a certain charisma and a confidence as he went about his work. So hopefully throughout the rest of the season they can just bring a bit more charisma and lightness to the Matt Murdock character. And as we saw throughout this episode, we see the relationship now has been certified between both Matt and Karen. And again, I don't see a lot of spark or charisma between the two. They're not exactly the most interesting couple. Again, I'm sure we'll see events throughout the rest of the season that will cause certain fractions and changes within their overall relationship. And in terms of the fight choreography in this episode, whether it was Daredevil's opening attack on the cargo ship or the climatic fight at Cherry's house, these type of scenes just feel functional. They do the trick enough. Now obviously they are light years behind the standard of fighting that we saw within the Netflix series, and I think the fight sequences in this new iteration here are still a little bit too choppy in the editing. You can clearly see the glimpses of the CGI that's used when Matt is throwing around his baton, taking on various villains. And maybe it's just the fact that with Daredevil as a character itself, after now 5 seasons of television, the closed space fights and corridor battles can get a little repetitive over time. There's not really much room in terms of expansion in terms of these fight scenes. I did like the moments where they made more effort to aesthetically show Matt's senses and reflexes, which was cool at times. I liked the fact that he was able to sense people's heartbeats. This is very much his own spider sense ability in many ways, and I did like the few moments that they showed that throughout this episode. The new black suit change is fine, if not anything spectacular. We've seen it so many times with so many iconic comic book characters donning the black suit. I don't think it does any improvement over the red suit, which I prefer, which I always felt in this version was a little too darkened. But in terms of not only this episode, but I think the series itself, the biggest problem I've had is that I think this show has ambition to be much more of a grander, expansive crime story, delving much more into the media perception and the politics as well as the criminal organisation. Maybe even perhaps we see too much of the former and not enough of the latter. And this episode itself showed the same signs that we can tend far too much into those elements, and as a result, the episodes can drag at times, and the show can feel much more like a legal drama or police procedural rather than an actual superhero comic book adventure. So we don't get the same amount of pace or intensity or momentum that I think we should of a show of this type. And a major effect of this is that we get a whole host of additional supporting characters that I just don't really care about, whether it's Heather Green's psychiatrist who is having PTSD over a encounter with Muse, whether it's the character played by Michael Gandolfini, who is working for Fisk, but at the same time he's giving some intel inadvertently to the other woman who was a relative of Ben Urich. I was for sure at some point that Gandolfini's character would get killed in the first season, and I'm pretty much sure Wilson Fisk would eventually find out, or he'll eventually slip some information that he shouldn't do, and he will eventually meet his death at the hands of Wilson Fisk. But again, I don't really care about these characters, same as Cherry, the detective or the ex-police officer who was helping Matt. I'm just not invested, and we get a whole host, way too many supporting characters, and they just take away from the main narrative, which should be around Wilson Fisk and also Daredevil himself. I think it's the show's way of trying to account for the fact that we don't really get a lot too much of Daredevil himself, so they have to overcompensate in many ways by giving us all of these ancillary characters and little subplots and dilemmas, which, as I said before, are nowhere near as compelling as what we get with the main characters overall. So we'll be interesting to see how much they integrate Poindexter or Bullseye into this season. We saw the screenshots within the trailers of him much more in his costume, which still wasn't great, and I think that's a failure. The fact that Bullseye's costume or Daredevil's costume don't really have much in terms of the imagination. So hopefully they can see much more improvement of those when we come into the following episodes. It will be interesting to see again how much the Punisher is involved. We know that he's got his spin-off episode that comes shortly after we get to the end of these 8 episodes. I'm not sure why he has a one-off rather than his own particular series, but that could be Marvel and Disney just testing the waters in terms of how successful Born Again is in terms of the ratings before they go forward with the second season. We also know that Jessica Jones will be making an appearance. I've heard she will appear in the later stages of the series. I'm really not sure why Jessica Jones is as integral to the story aside from linking her to the Netflix series. Again, this could be another way to gauge reaction as to whether they will go ahead with a continuation of the Jessica Jones show itself. We will wait and see what happens later on down the line. But that's it really in terms of this opening episode. Like I said, not bad, nothing too special or amazing, but I think there was enough here just to see what happens within the second season. And as I said, hopefully it can just keep the focus much more on the action and the comic book elements rather than all of the media and the politics and the behind the scenes drama of other supporting characters, which I don't think is anywhere near as essential. So there's some other thoughts and feelings when reviewing the opening premiere of the season 2 of Daredevil Born Again. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you have any other further movies, television series, or any other topics for the pop entertainment and culture scene that you'd like to see me cover in the channel, then also let me know in the comments and I'll see if I can provide further commentary for you on that subject matter within the future. Please also hit like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.